Evening, everyone. Welcome or welcome back if you are a normal Tuesday Live with Gotham Quilts member. Barbara, I see you in the comments. You're always number one from Southern California. So, welcome. All who are watching both live and on the replay, because we're here for you on the replay too. Today's live show is going to be something just a little bit different. There's no demo, there's no show and tell really. Tonight, I just want to talk to you about something that I think about a lot. And it hit me over the weekend. And I thought, you know what? This is a good topic for the live show with Gotham Quilts. I think it's something that we don't necessarily talk about nearly enough, but it's something that we hear from customers more than literally anything else. It's that feeling. You know the one. You're scrolling through Instagram or you're walking through a quilt store, you're looking at Pinterest and you find a quilt that is absolutely stunning. Or you could even be in your own neck of the woods at a quilt show or QuiltCon, for example. You see something that's absolutely stunning, and for a second, it's inspiring. But then a second later, something shifts, and you think, I could never do that. That is so beautiful. I could never do that. That's the feeling. That's what we're talking about tonight. And I've got some big feelings. I've got some things to say about this. So grab a drink, grab some popcorn, settle in, because that's what we're talking about today. I know it's a feeling that just about every single quilter has had, no matter where you are in the spectrum of your quilting journey. If you are just starting out or if you've been doing this for decades, I can almost guarantee that you've had that feeling about something, right? But I also want to give you, like the subject said, I want to give you a little pep talk well, because I think sometimes we all need it. So if that's something that you might need, or if you find this useful, flag this video, come back to it later, come back to it whenever you need it, because we are going to be here for you. But I also wanted to give you some very real practical advice that we've seen throughout the quilt shop, things that people have found useful to help maybe get over that hump of I could never. So, yeah, Raquella, spot on. I would be willing to bet that there's not a quilter out there who hasn't had that feeling. And speaking of the before we get into the main topic of the show, you're going to see me looking over here because I have a second monitor where I'm trying to run the show here. So if you see me looking over to the side, that's what I'm doing. But the quilt behind me, before we get into it, is one of those ones that you might look at it and you think, I could never. But this quilt is so easy. It is a few half square triangles, it's rectangles, it's squares, but the color, the fabric choice does a lot of the heavy lifting. This was our most recent mega mystery, one of the big mystery sew-alongs. You don't know what the design is or the layout is before you get started, but there are fabulous videos and clues to guide you through. This particular sew-along has a really lovely before you begin. It tells you all kinds of information that you need to know to pick the right fabric, because if you're going to spend that much time on something, you want it to turn out to be successful. So if you are interested in the quilt behind me, the mystery is out. It's no longer a mystery, but it did start out that way. It's the luau mystery in the fabric line in Rapture. And it is as gorgeous as it looks behind me. I'm kind of covering up all the important stuff there. It really is a beautiful quilt. So let's get to the heart of it. When I first started sewing, I was just a little young thing with zero inhibitions. I was just grabbing stuff together, sewing it together, and whatever the end result was, I was happy with it. Now, I was, I don't know, 10, 12, 13, somewhere around there, young enough where nobody would be surprised that something came from a 12-year-old. I wasn't worried about points matching. I wasn't worried about fabric matching. I wasn't even worried about what kind of fabric I was using. And actually, funny story, the pictures of this first quilt that it's still burned into my memory. Pictures are long gone. The quilt, if you could call it that, is long gone. But I will give you a little clue as to what it was. Now that I think back on it, it was a very bold choice. When people say, "Oh, that's a choice." It was a choice. It was a mixture of ginghams. There was pink and yellow. I think there was even like a blue or an aqua in there. It was just squares of ginghams all placed together in some kind of random order and different sizes of squares all stitched together. But boy, was I so proud and excited of that quilt. I can still remember it now, some modest number of years later. But I wasn't worried about any of it. I just made the things, had fun, and I really enjoyed doing it. Um, but something happened. My world got a little bigger. I started seeing more quilts and more makers and more of what's possible. Now, I think now we're in a really interesting time in that I'm sure all of your social media is filled with quilters and makers doing amazing, fabulous things. When I was first a quilter, when I was in those young years, we didn't really have the internet like we had now. Actually, we didn't have the internet like we have now. Sure, there were quilts on magazines and periodicals like that, but I could always say, well, that's them. They get paid to do that. Of course, they're going to be amazing and fantastic. They're just taking the best of the best. But now that we are all constantly bombarded with the fabulous, amazing, beautiful things that we all are making, it's really easy to fall into that trap of I could never. But it's a kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because with that, we get easy, immediate access to things that are incredible, that things that are inspiring and that should inspire us to do. So, as all this is going on, I really did fall in love with quilting, and I'm sure you did too. Um, but there was a little bit of that heaviness that I'm an imposter. I could never, right? But here's what I've come to understand about that. It is universal for creative people. There is always someone who's doing something amazing, and there really is kind of a psychology about it. When you're young and learning something, when you're a kid, think about it. Walking, talking, all of that. You go through life with just complete and utter fearlessness, because you're not evaluating yourself against anyone else. But when that moment of self awareness kicks in, that fearlessness goes with it too. So let's all try to bring a little bit back of that fearlessness. And if you have ever felt that way, this show is for you. So I'm going to start off with some of we'll call them excuses or the stories we tell ourselves. And really, there's a handful that I hear really often. If there's something that you've heard or that you tell yourself that I haven't gone through, put it in the comments because I would love to know. But here it is. Here is excuse number one is I'll start when I have more time, right? Has anyone said that to themselves? I don't have a whole weekend or I don't have an entire day to spend on making something, on this quilt that I really wanted to make, on this bag that I wanted to make. I don't have X hours to dedicate to it, so I'll just save it and stop and do it when I get time. And I'm starting with this one for a very specific reason because that is what I told myself this weekend on a long holiday weekend. This is what I told myself. I don't have, 3 days to dedicate to this, so I won't do anything. And what did I do? I watched a lame movie instead. So that is what started this Live with Gotham Quilt. And this one, we all know deep down inside that the time is not going to magically appear. There is no magical date where the universe will clear your calendar and you have a random Tuesday free to do nothing but quilt. Life is not going to clear a runway for your quilting. The time you have is the time you have right now. So here is where the very real, practical, hopefully helpful things will come in. And these are permission slips. I'm going to give you permission to break each one of these excuses. And here's your permission for this. You don't need a whole afternoon. You don't need a whole weekend. All you need is 20 minutes and a rotary cutter. Start small, start ugly, start simply, but just start. Okay? Here's excuse number 2. This one I hear all of the time. I'm not good enough for this fabric yet. This fabric is amazing, it's fantastic, and I don't feel like I'm good enough to cut into it. We hear this all of the time that someone is saving up that fabric, that very special fabric that they love, and they either put it back on the shelf and they say, "I'm not ready, I'll save this for when I'm better," or they've got it in their stash and they say, "I will cut into it after I get to X level, when I get to this level of being good," right? And I get it. Fabric is I feel silly saying this, but it's finite, right? In that a lot of the fabric that we see, it's one-time printing, and you might not ever see it again. So it feels like you're respecting the fabric, protecting it. But here is what I've learned. And Sandra says, drawers full of it. Absolutely. Drawers full of that fabric. Here's what I have learned. There will always be more beautiful fabric. There have been collections that I have loved with my entire heart and thought I will never find anything I love this much. And then something else beautiful came along, and I did. I loved it just as much as that first one. So it might not be that exact fabric, and you're 100% right. You might not ever get that exact fabric back again, but I promise you, you will find something you love just as much. Because whether we change as makers, like, I'm sure you can pinpoint different evolutions in the kinds of fabrics that you like. The kind of fabric that you bought 20 years ago might not be the same kind of fabric that you buy now. So whether we change as individuals, as makers, or because amazing designers just keep designing amazing things, beautiful fabric will continue to be released into this world. I promise you, that line that you're hoarding is not the last of its kind. You will find something you love just as much. So here is permission for this one. Here's permission to break this excuse. Use the good fabric, right? We've got Raquel who's saying time is our enemy, and 100% it is. You have permission to use the good fabric. And if that fabric is too special to you to just cut into willy-nilly, I can understand and respect that. So here's a tip, is make a test block first. When you've got that fabric picked out for a pattern you've never tried before, or you're not sure how it's going to work, use the fabric that you don't love nearly as much and make a test block. Because the practice that you put on that technique, on making that test block, will pay off in spades. It takes the pressure off. You have a little bit more freedom to, evaluate, to practice, to look at things, and to make sure that you are as confident as you can be going into that pattern. So make a test block, and then once you get a little bit more confident, cut into the good fabric. And Judy, boy, you could not be more right. It'll look that beautiful fabric, so much prettier in a quilt than it will in your stash. That's lovely, Judy. I love that. Raquel, say it isn't so. I promise you, Raquel, there'll be something just as beautiful. So that is your permission, is do what you need to feel comfortable cutting into it, but use the good fabric. It's doing nobody any good sitting in your stash. Okay, here is excuse number 3. And this one, I'll tell you a little secret. I have never subscribed to this one, but in case you are the kind of person who does, here's excuse number 3. I have to finish the project in my UFO before I finish something new, or before I start something new, rather. I have to finish that project that I'm working on before I start anything else. And who made this rule? If you follow this rule, you be sure to let me know in the comments. Um, I would seriously like to know where this rumor got started. Some projects deserve to be finished. That is 100% true. Some you love and they're really easy to finish. Some are maybe a little harder to finish because they are teaching you something that you really think and know you need to learn, that you need to stick with them. And some are just making you feel bad. Some are making you feel annoyed or guilty that you can't do something that you want to because you've got to finish what you were working on. And I'll pause here and do a little story time. There is a quilt in my very recent history, and it's way over on this side. I'm going to grab it. That I have decided to quit. I am breaking up with this project. And this is exactly where I left it, in the trays that we've used to kind of separate things. I'm not finishing this one. And I'll tell you why. It's not me. The fabric is beautiful. The pattern is amazing. It's super well written. I just don't like it. It doesn't speak to me. It's a little too scrappy for my tastes. I'm not really a random person. I don't do great with randomness. And so I'm quitting this one. We're breaking up. Raquella, yep. I'm breaking up with that quilt right there. And I'm not going to feel bad and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I'll do what I can with the fabric that's there. Maybe I will give it to a friend who this is maybe a little bit more her style. Maybe I will use the fabric that's cut to make something else. I don't know quite yet, but we're breaking up. And that's okay. So here's your permission on this one. You are allowed to have multiple projects going. If something like this guy, maybe this is something I can work on in small doses. It's okay to start something else and come back to it as you need to. You are also allowed to quit a project that is not serving you anymore. The UFO police do not exist, and I promise they will not come after you. I'm gonna tell you the story, but I wish I could remember where it actually came from. Is someone was saying, oh, I think it was one of our fabric reps, perhaps, but she was saying that her mom is infamous for quitting things, and she's a fast quitter. She knows right away if it's something that's worth her time or not, because back to the original beginning of the the show rather, time is the enemy. Our time is so limited and so precious that it's not even worth it to spend it on things that don't bring us joy and happiness. Okay, so here is excuse number 4. The project just isn't me anymore, but I already bought the fabric, or I already cut into it, or, I already spent money and or time on the thing. And this one kind of relates a little bit to the first one. But, sometimes it's a kit, for example, that we buy and put on a shelf and decide, you know what, this is not it. Here's your permission on this one. You are allowed to change your mind. You can donate the fabric, sell it on Facebook Marketplace. Someone will love it. Someone will give that kit or that top a good home. Pass the pattern along if it doesn't bring you joy. Release it with zero guilt. Send it on to somebody in the universe who could be happy with that. Maybe it's just more their style than yours. And save that room in your sewing room, in your heart, in your pocketbook for something that really actually excites you. Okay. This one we hear all of the time. I would say probably the second most heard one is, I was working on a project. I made a mistake really early on, and now the whole thing is ruined, or I can't fix it, or it's just going to go in a bag in the closet, and I'm either not going to think about it or it's going to nag me in the back of my mind. That could be a bad seam, a block that's a quarter inch off, a cut that you can't undo, and the whole project is ruined, or it feels ruined. Whatever you make, whatever you build on top of that is just going to be building on top of a mistake on that sandy soil that's just gonna fall apart, and so it just sits, and there it lives. So before you close this project off, first decide, can it be fixed? Um, can you trim all the blocks down to match the smallest one? If you've got a couple that are just a wonky size, can you trim them all down? Does the pattern lend itself to that? Can you add coping strips maybe to beef up? It'll change the pattern for sure, but can you beef up the ones that are too small so that everything's the same size? Is there enough fabric left over to cut like the worst offenders? Can it be unsewed? Could you add a little something from your stash or get a fat quarter from the fabric store to make a replacement block or to add some extra things? Like, would the pattern lend itself well to that? Can you add a little bit of something else? All of these are under the umbrella of, well, let's put it eloquently, fudging it, right? Can you fudge the quilt? Which is a completely legitimate quilting technique. I promise you, fudging you is or it should be in the quilting books. So here is your permission. Rip it if you can, fix it if you can, fudge it if you can't. And if you really, truly cannot fix it, a quilt with a little character is still a quilt. And sometimes those are the best quilts, and sometimes those are the best stories. Um, so keep going, keep working on it. And if it's just too far beyond repair, if it doesn't bring you joy, don't be afraid to be a fast quitter. Okay, and then the last excuse that we hear in the shop all the time is, "It's 90% done. I don't know why I can't finish it. I just can't get it over that finish line." And this one is a little bit sneaky because it doesn't feel like an excuse, right? It feels like a mystery, like, "I have no idea. The top is done, the backing is cut, and there it sits. All I have to do is that last 10% to get it finished." And this last 10%, it might be 10% of the work, right? But it feels like such high stakes because quilting and binding your quilt are permanent. Once it's done, it's done. Ripping a seam is relatively a piece of cake. Ripping out quilting, boy, that's kind of a pain in the neck, right? So it's a little bit scary, that last 10%. So here is your permission. Just remember that done is better than perfect. How many times have we heard that, right? Done is better than perfect. A finished quilt brings joy. A perfect quilt in a bag sitting in your closet does nothing to nobody. And if you have truly lost all will to finish it, there are places where you can go. You can sell the top, you can donate it. There are quilt guilds that will take or and maybe sell your top or give it to someone else who wants to finish it. There is someone out there who will love finishing what you started. So let them. You could also certainly give it off to a long armor and have them finish it too. That's another completely acceptable way to finish a quilt. Even a long armed quilt is still your quilt. So just remember that. So those are the most common we'll go here. Those are the most common like excuses, I guess we'll call them, or stories that quilters like to tell themselves. Now, I want to tell you about something I saw. Now, when I was looking it up, because I wanted to make sure that you had access to these things, I didn't realize it was so long ago that I saw this. Tula Pink. If you're not aware, she is an amazing, prolific, bright, colorful, bold fabric designer. I would say she's one of the biggest names working in the quilting industry today. Her quilts are absolutely gorgeous. She has an exhibition going on at Paducah right now, the history in the History of Quilt Museum there. Her fabric lines sell out. Like I say, the quilts are gorgeous by any measure. She is top of her game. She is amazing. Or a household name, should we say. She, not very recently, it turned out to be 3 years ago, posted her first quilt on social media. And if you haven't seen this, I've got a link right here, and this is going to link you to the video reel that Tula made talking about her first quilt. And she didn't just post it and say, "This is my first quilt, guys." She went through and pointed out every single mistake, every single goofy thing that she did, every single wonky bit, and pointed it out. So if that's where someone like Tula is starting from, um, you know, that's amazing. Not to say that Tula making a horrible first quilt, and it wasn't even really that horrible, but not to say that all of Tula's mistakes are absolutely amazing and great news. But Tula, I think in that video says, and you've heard it probably a million times, is don't compare your year 1 to someone else's year 20. But I think that also applies to don't compare your year 20 to someone else's year 30, right? Even if you are beyond that complete beginner status, this imposter syndrome it's very real. It could happen to you too. And that also applies to don't compare someone who does this for a living. It is her job to make beautiful quilts and beautiful fabric. Don't compare someone who does it full time to someone who does it on the weekends or as a hobby, those kinds of things. So getting into that comparison is really tricky. Now, the other piece of this is that the self-doubt that you feel, it is a documented fact that it's proof, it's a sign that you really care. It's proof that this amazing hobby of taking a piece of perfectly good fabric and cutting it up into teeny tiny pieces and sewing it into another piece of perfectly good fabric. It's that this crazy hobby matters to you. That people who don't care don't feel the doubt. The doubt and the passion come from the same place. So you're not doubting yourself because you can't do it. You're doubting yourself because you want to do it well, and that is a completely different thing. When you think of it that way, it kind of flips itself on its head. And so I wanted to, we can go back to that. I just wanted to show you some of the images from, now these are just screen grabs from the Tula Pink video. So I highly encourage you, if you need a little inspiration, if you just want to see where Tula Pink started from, these are little screenshots from that social media post where she's showing off her first quilt. And the thing that I wanted to show you out is certainly not to call out anyone or call out anything, but look at that very unique and creative way to bind a quilt. Like I say, it's a fascinating video. She posted it about 3 years ago, but this thing has stuck with me for ages. I was surprised that it was 3 full years ago that this got posted. So knowing all this, knowing that it's completely normal, knowing that Tula Pink did a weird binding job on her first quilt, does it make it go away? Does it make this I could never go away? Nope, probably not. And I still fight with this. I think most people do still fight with this. But there are actually 2 things that really help when the feeling is especially loud, when I can't get past it. One we talked about a little bit earlier, and that is to make a test block. Just doing something small really builds that confidence, especially when a pattern is brand new, when there's a lot of complicated pieces. It can feel really intimidating. And so I just make 1 block, not the quilt, just 1 block. I'm not committing to anything else. At that point, it's really easy to still bail, right? Because you've only got 1 block in, but just see what happens. And we'll call it 85 to 90% of the time, once I get past that first block, the intimidation disappears and I want to make a million more and finish up the quilt. The second thing is to take the pressure off the fabric. Fabric can feel like a very special, sacred resource. And to a certain extent, it is. There's a lot of time and effort and money that goes into this fabric. But if you're staring at yardage that you love and you're just too scared to cut into it, grab something. It could be something similar from your scrap bin. If you're worried about the colors or the pattern size, the what am I thinking of? The printing size, right? The scale of the fabric. Grab something that you've got that similar that you love a lot less and give it a try. Give yourself permission to be bad at the thing before you do it for real. And I promise you, you will be better at it faster than you think. So the goal really is to start super small so that you can't talk yourself out of it. And it really is sometimes very daunting to say, I'm going to make this giant quilt that is 50 blocks versus I'm going to just give this a try and see how it feels. Here's one thing that I know to be true after talking to quilters every single day. And Judy kind of hit on this. Very wise, Judy. Thank you. The quilts you don't make don't bring anyone joy. Not your family, not the recipient, not you. Done beats perfect every single time. So before we close this out, I'll just check the comments to see how everyone is doing here. Oh, Judy, congratulations. Entered the Minnesota Quilt Show. Your first judged quilt. And you are so brave, and congratulations for putting yourself out there, because there is nothing, I mean, there's things that are scarier, right? But it is very scary and very intimidating to put yourself, your heart, your soul, your work out there to be judged by the people. But that, Judy, I should get a check in the mail for you this, because all of your segues are just so lovely. The one thing I wanted to say before we close out the show here is that you are not doing this alone. None of you are doing this alone. The quilting community is one of the most genuinely kind corners of the internet. And the internet can be kind of an unkind place in a lot of the cases. The makers you admire, the designers whose work just stops you mid-scroll, they're not looking at your work and judging your points not coming together. They bringing your local quilt shop is, I think, a great example, and something that I can speak to firsthand. We are all rooting for you. That's just the culture of this craft, and I am so glad that it is. I'm so glad that we found home in a place of the internet and the world that is, I think, just a little kinder than the rest. So that's exactly what we try to be for you here at Gotham, a place where there's no question too basic, where you can walk in or call us or email us with a pattern that scares you a little bit, or participate in our community space with something that scares you and walk away with a plan, either from Gotham specifically or the amazing community that we have built out there in our community space, where someone has held that fabric or made that pattern and can help you figure out your next step. So I want to ask you something for the comments right now. What is that project you have been putting off? What's sitting in a bag, waiting for the day when you feel ready? What is it? Put it in the comments. I'm actually really curious about that. And I bet that you will find that you are not the only one with a project like that. And let's see here. Yeah. Like, I think these comments are just a really great example of how and why the quilting space is just a little bit nicer. So with that, one other thing that I wanted to bring up right now is, if you need a little bit of encouragement, we've got our Finish Those UFOs. I don't want to call it a contest. It's not really a contest, but Finish Those UFOs. It is a community where you get a prize for finishing a UFO. So if you click on the QR code or scan that QR code, that'll bring you to our Finish That UFO blog post. Especially if you've got one of those UFOs that's been sitting out for a little while, it might need some detective work, some reconnaissance work to figure out where you were and where to start. This blog post is going to help you. And it is also going to bring you to the place where you register for the prize for finishing your UFO in time for National UFO Day, which is beginning of July. I think it's like July 2nd or 3rd. So it's right before the 4th of July. So that'll be a fun one. We also, if you are looking for a little help or assistance in getting your color confidence, your color mojo, we've got our thread talks. This next one is with Carolina Onito. She is going to give us the talk of befriending color, and she's going to go through a handful of different ways in which you can implement them immediately to be better and more confident in picking colors for your quilt. If you need something a little more intensive, we've got our Color for Quilters class. The next session, the next semester, is starting in July. So that's going to be a fun one. And then last but not least, if you are looking for something to expand your horizons a little bit, Stitch Lab is an amazing community. It's a great group of people who encourage each other in both what they've done and what they're doing. This next month, the June meeting is talking all about sashiko, hand stitching. And with each month, you get a little project, a little thing to help you learn the lesson or do the experiment, I guess is a better way to talk about it. So Stitch Lab is an amazing group of people that we meet virtually and work on some fun stuff. So that is where I'm going to leave you tonight. When you close down the laptop or put down your phone or however you're watching the video, can you please just do one thing? Just one. Go find that project. Go find that pattern. The one that's been sitting in the back of your closet, the fabric that you've been saving, that pattern that you bought and never opened, the one that you're saving for someday when I feel good enough, find it. Put it somewhere where you can see it. You don't have to start it tonight. Just bring it out into the light. Just stop hiding it because you are good enough. You have always been good enough. And the only quilt you'll ever regret is the one you never made. So thank you so much for being here with me tonight. Thank you so much for allowing me to give you this little pep talk. Anytime you need to refer back to it, it will be out here. I hope you find it, whether you are watching us live or watching us on the replay. This one is for you guys too on that replay. Go find that project. Go find that confidence. And we'll see you next week.